You're listening to the Dairy Podcast, your resource for the Dairy Center for the Arts. Get moved.
My name is Glenn Webb. I'm the cinema manager for the Dairy Center for the Arts. I run the Boedecker Theater. I also book some films into the performance space, which now has HD projection capabilities. The Boedecker Theater has been open for just about 2.5 years. It was built with a generous grant from the Boedecker Foundation as a way of generating more interest in the dairy and the programs being offered here. It's a very intimate and comfortable space. It's 60 seats. The seats are very, very comfortable. It's stadium-style seating. It's 5.1 surround sound, so it's very high-quality sound, very easy to hear and understand everything that's being said in the movie. And for music movies, it's sometimes breathtaking. We have a membership program, so for $100 a year for an individual or $175 for a household, well then you can buy a membership that, amongst other things, it gives you a few dollars off of movie tickets. We do once a month, we do a member pre-screening where we show a movie for our members that we're thinking of possibly bringing as part of our regular programming, but we're not certain about. And then we get our folks to weigh in on that, so that way members can be actually part of the programming team, deciding what kind of movies we want to show here. And then we have other interesting events that we do throughout the year that are targeted at our members. We do the Academy Awards party where we watch the Oscars together, which is a huge fun thing to do in a large group like that. We're looking at doing a movie trivia night coming up this fall, probably in September, and that'll be a lot of fun as well. Gather Films is an interesting operation. They are go-betweens for distributors and for patrons who want to bring a specific film to their area. And so they would request to gather one of the films that's on Gather's roster and say, for instance, the documentary about the environmental activist called Bitter 70. Say, we really want to see that movie. It hasn't come to our town. Can you please put a request for it? And they put a time frame, and then Gather Films goes and contacts theaters in that region and says, are any of you interested in hosting this screening in this time frame? And then if somebody says yes, well, then they come up with a threshold that says we have to guarantee this many tickets or else the screening won't happen. And at that point, then they list it online and tell the patron requester that it is listed for this date in this theater. And then it's kind of crowdsourcing at that point. It's up to them to generate the local interest and get enough people to sign up online and say, yes, they're coming to that screening. And once it passes the threshold, then the screening happens. We did that with them for the film Girl Rising and did really, really well. And then so well that we then booked the film through them as a regular distributor for another week-long run. The preview series is a program that they're pioneering, which is once a week, a movie that has not even opened theatrically, either in New York or LA or anywhere in the States. This is usually a week or two before they open. People who subscribe to the series are able to see these movies first. And for a lot of them, this might be the only time they'll be able to see them in Boulder. The Gather people are pretty good at picking really good films, but on the other hand, they are independent films. They're not major studio releases. And so as such, they may or may not get picked up. Some of them are from distributors that don't normally work with smaller theaters. So some of those movies I can't get any other way. For us, it's a great deal to be able to show these movies, even if just for one night, so that our audiences have a chance to see these films. Some of them are through distributors that I have a relationship with. And in that case, for me, it's a great opportunity to preview the film and see that if it's something that's worth bringing. The ones that we've booked from the Gather preview series, one was the Levon Helm documentary, I Ain't In It For My Health, which was great. Really a lot of fun, and we did pretty well with that one. There's another documentary coming up in July about bees called More Than Honey. The video footage is just jaw-droppingly amazing. They are actually able to mount a very small HD video camera glued to the head of a bee, and they actually get in-flight bee cam footage. It's unreal, absolutely unreal. But the film is all about the amazing creatures that bees are, but it goes beyond that, obviously, to talk about the role that they play ecologically and the challenges they face. And many of those challenges are probably man-made. A variety of different theories about some of the hive collapse, colony collapse issues with bees, ranging from pesticides to disease. So there are definitely challenges, and we're very dependent upon bees for a lot of food crops and for agriculture and just for the environment. And then another one from the Gather preview series that we booked, that's not a documentary, it's a narrative. It's called Broken, and it's a British film, and the Brits like their dramas to be very gritty and realistic, and this is no exception. It's based on a novel, and the novelist gives full props to inspiration from Harper Lee from To Kill a Mockingbird. The setup for it is a young adolescent girl, nicknamed Skunk in this case, not Scout, whose father is a lawyer, sort of a pillar of the community, and older neighbor boy, not quite right in the head, gets accused of something wrongly, and from there it departs quite a bit from the To Kill a Mockingbird story. But it's really a good movie. It's one of those where I watched it twice before booking it, partly because I liked it so much, and partly because it's a good enough film to where on subsequent viewings you can start peeling back layers and really seeing a lot of what's going on. And at first when I saw the movie, the title Broken didn't quite make sense to me. It's like, why this title? And then it's one of those films where the title actually is sort of a key to unlock a lot of the deeper meanings. That the themes in it are all about fragility and human frailty, and how many different ways there are to be broken, and how it's possible to be redeemed from that broken state. I think quite highly of the film, and so I hope that people come and see that. We're going to be showing Dirty Wars about the journalist Jeremy Scahill, who has uncovered a lot of nasty secrets about military operations that our country conducts around the world. That's a very important film, and I'm very glad that we're showing it. Other stuff that's on the horizon, we've had great success collaborating with our gallery curator, Mary Horrocks. We did a great documentary called Herb and Dorothy about Herb and Dorothy Vogel, who were these two art collectors in Manhattan. Who one was a postal clerk, the other one was a librarian, so very modest incomes, fairly small apartment. But they just set out to start collecting art. They just loved art, and they started buying up art. A lot of times it was art by artists who hadn't been recognized as great yet, but they had a really good eye for it. And so a lot of these artists went on to be quite famous. And their apartment was packed. There were pieces of art under beds, in closets, just stacked against walls. It was just, this huge collection, which is kind of an inspiring story in itself, in that it brings home the point that art is for everybody. It's not just for the privileged few who can afford it. But this new documentary is a sequel to that, called Herb and Dorothy 50 by 50. When it came time to figure out what to do with this huge collection, well, then they gave most of it to the National Archive, and with the idea that they would distribute a lot of these pieces throughout the country, giving 50 different pieces of art to each state. So in the first run of Herb and Dorothy, well, then Mary was able to go down to the Fine Arts Center in Colorado Springs, which has lots of these pieces, quite a few of these pieces from the Vogel collection. And they loaned us about a half a dozen of their pieces, and Mary was actually able to kind of cherry pick some of the finer pieces that they have from that Vogel collection, and we had them here at the dairy on display in our gallery for a couple of weeks, which was really a coup to have that quality of art in our gallery. So we're probably going to show this follow-up sequel documentary. And then another one in sort of the same art vein is a documentary about the disappearance of the Mona Lisa. This is back 1918. It actually was missing for 2 years. No, 1911 it was missing for 2 years. And the filmmaker, when he first found out, a lot of people don't realize that the Mona Lisa was stolen and missing for 2 years from the Louvre. He became obsessed with the idea and kept trying, back in his 20s, kept trying to write screenplays, narrative screenplays about it, but kept coming up short when he was trying to figure out the motivation. Because they found the thief, they were able to catch him and prosecute him, but they were never really able to establish very well in the historical record what his motivation was. The thief is dead by now, and most of the key characters in the story are gone. So he finds the guy's daughter and goes to interview her and thinks, this is going to be great. She's going to tell me. And turns out that he died when she was just a couple of years old. So she never knew her father. And so then the story becomes about him trying to find the truth and share it with her, because she has all these unanswered questions about her father as well. This week, we're showing this thing, Becoming Traviata. It's a documentary about a production of La Traviata with Natalie Dessay, very famous soprano. It really goes behind the scenes and shows how opera performances are put together and gives you that sense of that European perspective on opera and how they are somewhat at the forefront of keeping it a very viable and lively and new art form. That actually opens on the 10th of July, so next Wednesday, I believe, and then plays through Sunday, the 14th. Another one on the art theme is a narrative called Museum Hours. We hope to book that in August. It's about an unlikely pair of people having this relationship by way of the art museum in Vienna. So it's them beginning to interact. It has an underlying theme of how art becomes a context through which we can have meaningful interactions. I want to say that it's always a balancing act with bookings in terms of trying to stick with stuff that is somewhat popular and mainstream for independent cinema, at least. Titles that people have already heard about, that are being widely talked about, and titles that are more well regarded in cinema critical circles as fine pieces of cinematic art. We're really trying to satisfy both of those, and we want to make sure that we offer alternatives so that would not necessarily be available otherwise, so that people locally have a chance to see some of the best that cinema has to offer. That being said, we are looking at booking Before Midnight, which is a very popular independent cinema title. It's also very high quality, so we'll be bringing that. On the horizon, Woody Allen has a new one coming out, I think this fall. We'll certainly be booking that, so keep checking back with us. And also that feel free to recommend films to us. I can't guarantee that we'll follow up on all those recommendations, but I'm very happy to entertain them. So anybody who wants to, I'm very accessible. Please, contact me, email, phone message, or just grab me in the lobby of the Bow before or after a screening. And I'm really interested in hearing what people want to see, because that's really kind of what it's about. This is a cinema for the community to claim as their own and make a sense of community around movies here.
For more information about the Dairy Center for the Arts, go to thedairy.org. The Dairy Podcast is a production of Collective Arts, Inc. To learn more, go to collectiveartsink.com.